Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This is our second Middle Nation region discussion group briefing. We did one a couple of days back for West Africa, and now we're having our briefing on South Africa with, mashallah, Sister Nisa to give us an update on the situation in South Africa. So I'll turn it over to you, Sister.
Shukran. So, Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Thank you so much for listening. And I really hope that, at the end of it, there'll be a little bit more information about what is happening currently. And I've only chosen two topics to discuss because this is currently what is, so to say, dominating the news space within South Africa. So the first thing that I will be speaking about is the suspension of talks about Starlink coming to South Africa. Now, recently, South Africa suspended negotiations with Elon Musk's Starlink like a day or so ago over compliance with Black economic empowerment laws. Now, this decision has sparked significant discussion, especially considering the potential benefits and challenges that Starlink could bring to our country, or at the very least, they want us to believe that Starlink is the panacea of all internet connectivity in rural South Africa. But the reality is far from revolutionary. So let's first talk about BEE and licensing laws. Now, South Africa's BEE, or its BBEEE policy requires foreign companies to have at least 30% local ownership to operate here. Now, this aims to empower historically disadvantaged communities and promote economic transformation. Now, we're talking about Black people, we're talking about colored people, we're talking about Indian people, and Africans benefit from these laws. So this is also the race-based laws or racist laws being referred to in the right-wing narrative. Now, according to recent stats, about 1% of white South Africans are considered poor. That is a very low amount. So keep in mind, after apartheid ended, their wealth and possessions were not taken away, they kept it. And now back to Starlink, its reluctance to comply with our regulations has led to the suspension of discussions regarding its operations in South Africa. And also you need to keep in mind that they are not providing solutions in South Africa as yet. The signal is blocked, but this is one of the reasons why Musk is targeting South Africa. So let's talk about the illusion of revolutionizing internet connectivity. So while Starlink's satellite-based internet does offer potential benefits, it's not the sovereign remedy that some people would like you to believe. South Africa we already have local companies providing satellite internet services in any case, and that's not new. It's been here for decades, and those tailored to our unique needs and pricing structures. Now, these providers understand the South African market and they offer solutions that are affordable and effective. Now, on top of that, Starlink's initial pricing was exorbitant with premiums around $500 a month. Now, nobody, or almost nobody, can afford that, especially rural South Africa, and neither can most people in urban South Africa afford those type of prices. Now, while prices have slowly over the years declined because people, were saying that it's too expensive, that we will never be able to afford that. And who wants to spend, in South African terms, that's like between 8,000 Rand to 10,000 Rand a month on internet. That's just not going to do. That's rent, that's groceries, that's electricity, that's all that type of things that people are not willing to spend on internet just to be connected to the internet, So it's not a priority in terms of, or the cost doesn't warrant people wanting to actually subscribe to Elon Musk's Starlink. Now, even if Starlink were to bypass BEE requirements, the high costs and Musk's tarnished reputation would likely deter many South Africans from subscribing in any case. So regarding the public sentiment, Elon Musk's reputation in South Africa has taken a nosedive, especially following his criticism of our land expropriation laws. And many South Africans view his comments as interference in our domestic affairs, which it is. And this leads to a decline in public trust. So at the end of the day, Elon Musk's opposition to South Africa's land reform policies and our economic reform policies reveals his resistance to addressing past injustices from which he himself has benefited from. So that's my segment on Starlink. I'm going to move on to Congress, the Congress letters to Trump to remove South Africa from AGOA. So my next topic is the recent developments concerning the African Growth and Opportunity Act and South Africa's trade relations with the United States. Now, AGOA has been a cornerstone of South Africa's trade relations with America and granting duty-free access to Americans' markets. Now, in 2022, approximately 25% of South Africa's exports to the United States, which was valued at about $3.6 billion, benefited from AGOA's policies. So, however, recent letters from the United States Congress members urged President Trump to exclude South Africa from AGOA, which cites concerns over our Land Expropriation Act, BEE or BBEEE, as well as our relationship with China, which is hilarious since it is so hypocritical because the United States itself maintains substantial trade relations with China. In 2022, United States-China trade reached approximately $690 billion, underscoring the complexity of global trade dynamics. South Africa's trade with China in the same year was valued at $21 billion, highlighting our significant economic engagement with the global South. Now, at the same time, showing that the United States of America trades at a much larger scale with China than we do, yet they still have an issue with the relationship that we are fostering with China. Now, this disparity raises questions about the consistency of the United States stance. While the United States continues its extensive trade with China, it scrutinizes South Africa's diplomatic choices, revealing a double standard that warrants close examination. Now let's talk about economic implications. If South Africa is removed from AGOA, so the potential removal from AGOA poses substantial economic risks for South Africa, particularly in key industries such as the automotive industry, where exports to the United States reached a 1.6 billion in 2022. For agriculture sectors such as citrus, grapes, wine, which rely heavily on the United States markets, would face significant challenges. And mining, it also falls under this: platinum, gold, chromium, steel, and so forth. America is 100% import reliant in this industry. And South Africa supplies 40 to 60% of the imports of various minerals. Now, keep in mind that these industries are dominated by white monopoly capitalism. So that is the demographic that would lose out the most, which realistically would trickle down to non-whites who could lose jobs. However, we do have, as a country, alternative trade partnerships. Now, while the loss of AGOA would be challenging, I mean, if you can keep it and still build on the side, that would be ideal, and that is what South Africa wants to achieve, where you can freely trade with any country, and that is our right as a sovereign nation. So while the loss or potential loss of AGOA would be challenging, South Africa has viable alternatives such as BRICS. We all know that trade is increasing among BRICS nations. The bloc is growing year by year. Trade is increasing more than just trade. Other aspects are also being cooperative about within the bloc. Another partnership that we do have is the African Continental Free Trade Area, which is the AfCFTA. This agreement facilitates intra-Africa trade, and it reduces a reliance on external markets, which is a good thing. Another partnership that we do enjoy is with the European Free Trade Association, EFTA, and the United Kingdom. So existing bilateral agreements can be leveraged to mitigate potential losses from AGOA exclusion. And the EU has just confirmed that South Africa and EU trade relations remain reliable and predictable. So these are America's allies who have potentially or politically begun distancing themselves from America. And since America's actions have impacted their economies, they most likely wouldn't want to mess with their economy for America's tantrums. So there's no doubt that America's placed a target on South Africa's back because of the ICJ case. Now, relations in BRICS and Elon Musk's personal vendetta. And while the potential removal from AGOA presents challenges, it also serves as a catalyst for South Africa to strengthen its trade relations within the Global South. Now, by diversifying our economic partnerships and focusing on regional integration and simultaneously strengthening international cooperation, we can reduce reliance on any single market where no other country can hold you to ransom. And it shouldn't be able to shake your economy if a country decides that they no longer want to trade with you. So the truth is that the ones running scared in South Africa are the same ones who benefited from apartheid. And in reality, while the United States may feel threatened by South Africa's expanding global partnerships, this is a testament to our strategic autonomy, our influence within Africa as well as within the Global South, and our ability to navigate the complexities of international trade. And at the end of the day, removing South Africa from AGOA would only lessen America's influence over the country, and it diminishes its bargaining power. So they would be at a loss for it, minus our minerals and the influence. And we are strategically in the right place, especially in terms of where Africa is concerned. They do need us to be working together with them. So this shift could be more beneficial to South Africa, especially if it replaces these trade agreements with nations that respect sovereignty and act as true partners, rather than America acting like a broke bully, a broke playground bully, trying to steal your lunch money. Thank you so much for that.
With regards to this, the last story, we just have a few minutes. All of these types of policies, this like threatening to remove them from AGOA, and as well as the tariffs policies that Trump is putting in, and the threaten and sanctions also against South Africa, and sanctions against other countries. Obviously, there's, as you were sort of mentioning, I mean, you're talking about how there can be other trade partners for South Africa. But also even those other trade partners could end up just being conduits for South Africa to still sell to America, could still export to America just through a third party. Yes. Same thing that Russia is doing with their oil and gas. I mean, now India is an actual exporter of oil, which makes no sense at all. So this is almost a way of forcing South-South trade, increasing South-South trade, where maybe America will say, we're not going to take anything from South Africa, but South Africa could send it somewhere else, and then they could send it to America. It's just a way of actually increasing intra-South trade, don't you think?
I agree 100%, but yes.
No, I'm sorry. Just there's a delay, I guess, in the sound. If South Africa wasn't selling the minerals, for example, if they weren't selling the minerals to America, forget about where America might try to get those minerals from otherwise. To whom else could South Africa sell them?
There are a lot of strategic partners that they could sell them to, because it is like, for example, India. India is good with tech, because a lot of the minerals that gets used in America is for tech. Weapons manufacturers, even to Russia could even buy it, even China could buy it, because these are manufacturers using steel, using chromium, using platinum for the tech industry, for the military industry. So those are places where they can sell them. That is within just the bigger nations of the BRICS countries. Even in Africa, it can be sold. There could be instances with regards to, and barter is not the right word, but whatever minerals that South Africa doesn't mine, we could get from other African countries and vice versa. So that type of trade and intertrade within African nations would benefit Africa as a whole. I do think South Africa should put a lot more focus on trading within Africa, besides with BRICS nations, but with Africa itself, increase it more than what it has before, and really push to uplift within Africa and do that intertrade when it comes to minerals, because Africa regions, we all know that you can find certain minerals within certain areas and certain regions, and most of it is needed in terms of in technology and creation and the production of technology. And because the world is moving towards more a technology-centric world where every household has technology, regardless of what it is, that will only increase. And you will find that even within Africa, markets would open, innovation will open. We can have even technologies being produced within Africa. There's South Africa has currently, they have a factory creating or manufacturing cell phones. It's some brand that they have in Brits, which is the first and only one that is being produced, which is away from the Chinese market. So it shows you that once we utilize the skills and the resources, including human resources, in Africa, that we can do that amongst each other, and together we can supply, without or overseas or out of the continent, so to say.
And if they increase the intra-Africa trade and the South-South trade, then the next step would be to to conduct that trade in local currencies, not in the US dollar.
That would be ideal, because that would mean that our currencies would have, obviously the value would increase. And that doesn't mean that we are trying to do away with the dollar and do one currency. There's nothing wrong with using the currencies that we have and just trade with each other's currencies. That is part of sovereignty in any case, to be able to dictate how we want to do things. And that is ultimately what we want to be able to do. So we don't expect that everybody must work on the same currency, because that's where monopoly comes in. Just like the United States of America has a monopoly where the dollar is dominating, and as we do not want that. We want a multipolar world, and that includes being able to use your own currency, and it has value, and everybody has more or less the same value. We understand that it can't be on par with each other, because there's little different variables that goes into what predicts how your currency is valued at, but that would increase the value as long as we can trade amongst each other, and which is good for the people of that country, because that means your cost of living would then be more affordable if you have a currency that is wanted by other countries.
Absolutely. And in fact, I don't think BRICS even has any plan for actually like a BRICS currency. No one is actually talking about having a single currency for the BRICS nations, or even outside of BRICS. No one is actually talking about having a single currency for Africa. No one's serious anyway. No one who's in a position to make those types of decisions. I think everyone actually understands from the experience of the Eurozone that it's actually a very bad idea to have multiple different economies operating on a single currency. I don't think anyone's talking about that. I think that they have talked about having just a unified trading system. Only this, not a single currency. This is a kind of a red herring that Trump has talked about and others have talked about, saying that they're going to go after anyone. The issue isn't what currency this country and that country choose to trade in, or that they have to trade in a particular currency. The issue is not using the dollar. That's the issue. The issue is de-dollarization. Yes. Whatever currency you choose to use, even if you choose to use the yuan, or you choose to use the ruble, or you use your local currencies, any of those options is superior to using the dollar. There's no reason at all why South Africa should be trading with any other African country using US dollars. It makes no sense. There's no reason why America should have any finger in that pie.
In fact, after Trump made that statement, For the life of me, I cannot remember. I think it was the Russian, it came from Russia's statement was made that BRICS is not looking at a single currency, that BRICS is encouraging countries to trade within, using their own currency or each other's currency. So after he made that statement, BRICS, that or one of the countries of BRICS, and for the life of me, I apologize, I can't remember which one it was, but definitely I did see that they did say there won't be a single currency. That's not what they're talking about. They're talking about and they're encouraging using each other's currencies.
Yeah, in fact, they've clarified this a number of times. They've actually stated it a number of times that no one is actually interested in a single currency. This is again, it's kind of like the U.S. always thinking that everything has to be done the way that they've done things, and so they assume that everyone is just going to, if the U.S. is receding from power and there's going to be a new sort of global hegemon, even if it's a multipolar type of a hegemon or there's collective hegemons and so on. They always think that someone else has to do things exactly the way that they did things, but no one is interested in doing it the way that they've done things. Just one quick question before we have to end the meeting. With regards to the Starlink issue, do you think that this personal issue of Elon Musk, this personal and financial issue of Elon Musk, is actually at the root of all of the political animosity being expressed by the Trump administration against South Africa?
100%. I believe it is a personal vendetta. Remember, Elon Musk is a beneficiary of that system where the color of his skin allowed him tremendous privileges, and they were rich, and his family is still rich. And he does not like the feeling of things being recalibrated and rebalancing out, because that is what these laws are about, is about recalibrating. It doesn't mean we want to subjugate white people. It just means bringing those people that, or attempt to at least bring them up to a level that is within, that brings dignity and whatever, and give them access to opportunities. Now, the problem is that Elon Musk does not like that. He does not. His ideology is white supremacism. He might not say it out loud, but you can see it in the way that he acts. You can see it in the way that his beliefs are. And his family background is from it stems from racism, where his father did an interview recently with a popular podcast in South Africa, and said that his grandfather or his grandparents, his mother's parents, came to South Africa because they believed in the apartheid policies. And so he has been taught those ways. So it is 100% a personal vendetta against South Africa, because he's only really talking about race-based laws. That's really the only thing that bothers him when it comes to South Africa. Why is that being pushed the most? And at the end of the day, the United States of America has the same laws. And ours go through a system, and it goes through a parliament. It's debated at length. It's contested at length. It takes time. It wasn't just sucked out of, parliament or the president's thumb like yesterday. It's been talks for more than a decade when it comes to these laws. So it has to do with those, the fact that I believe that he is racist, yes.
Well, I mean, you said he doesn't have to say it out loud, but he did literally a Nazi salute in front of the whole world. So I'm not sure how much more out loud you can be and out in the open you can be about it. The thing is, for white South Africans, and in America as well, obviously, if you're used to a position of superiority, then equality feels like a downgrade. Equality feels like you're being subjugated because you're used to being on a pedestal. You're used to being up very high. And so when you end up being on an equal level, or even close to an equal level with everyone else, then you feel like it's a downgrade, and you feel that you're being oppressed because you don't get to have that same superior position that you got used to before. So in other words, what we're talking about actually is the Trump administration imposing mobilizing the tools of the state, sanctions, threatening the removal from AGOA, threatening other economic consequences on South Africa, using the political tools of the American state in service, directly in service to Elon Musk, to Starlink, to a business. It couldn't be a more clear example of how the state is subordinate to the interests of the private sector. SubhanAllah.
Yes, textbook case. That's exactly what is happening right now. You can see it. It's no longer conspiracy theory. If people believe it's a conspiracy theory, their eyes are not open and their ears are deaf, and they are not looking and they're not seeing and they're not hearing. That is the definition of the state bowing down to capitalism. You could see it in the inauguration. The oligarchs were all positioned right in front. They were lined up. Elon Musk was in his element. You could see they were just happy that their turn is. They don't have to hide it anymore. They're happy. They don't have to hide it anymore. They don't have to pretend anymore that they these moral citizens and that they care about human lives. And the reason why they hoard all this cash is because, well, the rest of the world is just too stupid to handle cash. They really don't have to hide anymore exactly what they think of the rest of the world, what they think of the people within the United States of America. They in their element. They get to, for the next 4 years, they get to do whatever they want until the next president comes along, and it's just a downward spiral. It's like you say, Trump is just overseeing the decline. It's not going to get any better for them if they don't make real changes, and it doesn't seem that they are interested. Trump is allowing himself, this man with his big mouth that can threaten, powerful nations with nuclear weapons and whoever it is. He has this huge mouth and he seems to be so outspoken, but at the end of the day, he's just he's just a megaphone, and he's just doing what Elon Musk wants him to do. In any case, it's the truth. It's not a conspiracy theory. You can see it happening, and he's signing off on these things.
This is why I always mention when I'm talking about this, the specific issue of American power or American hegemony, that it has always been based on the lack of alternatives. So now that alternatives exist, all of these threats are empty threats. All of these threats can bounce off the chest of South Africa and anyone else that they threaten. Sanctions don't have the power they used to have. Tariffs are an incredibly bad idea for the American economy as it is. I'll actually talk about that soon. But you can't throw your weight around when the only reason that you ever had the ability to throw your weight around is because no one else was throwing their weight around. You were the only one on the stage, so you always got the monologue. You always got the soliloquy. But now there's a whole stage of actors, full of actors, and everyone can have dialogue with each other now. So no, South Africa doesn't need. They can threaten as much as they want. And it's also interesting that, as you mentioned, with the AGOA agreement, the main beneficiaries of that are the white South Africans. The main beneficiaries are the white South Africans, the very people who you are saying that you're worried about and that they're being oppressed and they need to have their rights. And one of the reasons why you're opposed to what is required of you, Elon Musk, for operating Starlink in South Africa, is because you think that it's unfair to whites. Meanwhile, you're threatening to actually harm whites in South Africa by taking South Africa out of AGOA. So it's clear there's so many contradictions in this. If South Africa were to just float a compromise about Starlink, then suddenly all of these complaints and grievances against South Africa would disappear. It's so transparent that all of their talk about morals and principles and justice and unfairness and equality and so on, it's all meaningless. It's all just because he wants to be able to operate in South Africa how he wants to operate for his own private enterprise.
Absolutely. And if they do give in, if the South African, because South Africa is getting a delegation together, they're going over to the United States of America, to Washington, and they're going to go discuss to try and keep South Africa, still as part of AGOA. And if they do compromise on the BEE, they're just opening, the door to for a president, they're setting a precedent for this, laws can be broken because this is an actual law, it's legislation. It's not just something that it's gone through the constitution, it's all those things. It has gone through the processes and the mechanism. It's a legislation, a valid legislation. So if South Africa gives into it, that means they are breaking the law, in terms of allowing Elon Musk to bring Starlink. That we don't need more internet. We fine. We don't. We've got. We can make do with what it is. There's other service providers. And Africa, we are not dumb. We are innovative. We can come up with solutions. But as it is already, we've got internet in the smallest towns. They're not always the best, but it functions and there's no need. And you'll notice the people that are shouting at the top of their voices for this Starlink, predominantly white people that feels very aggrieved over the fact that South Africa is the only country in the SADC region that doesn't have Starlink, because all the others that are supposedly below us, like Zimbabwe and Namibia, they already have Starlink, but we don't have Starlink. We've got internet. It's okay. We can do without it.
Absolutely. I'm pretty sure that we're connected right now by internet.
Yes, and it's not the best, by the way. It's not one of the best. I'm in a small town, so that's why I'm fine. We're doing it. We're still getting our message across, and it's not the fast internet. And some say Starlink is fast, some say Starlink is slow. I don't know. I'm not interested in spending $500 a month on internet. I've got bills to pay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, Sister, Jazakallah khair. I think that will do it for tonight. I think the meeting is going to end probably automatically on the Zoom call. So, Barakallahu feek. That was a very informative briefing on South Africa. I hope, inshallah, we'll be able to do it every week.
Inshallah, that's my aim. And thank you so much for your time, Brother Shahid. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for your time, Sister. Yalla, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.